Let's talk about a few organizational essentials. In this episode, let's focus in on the onboarding process. Now, effective onboarding is crucial for staff retention and for the productivity of your team. Sometimes we overinvest in the recruitment process so that we have this detailed and stringent process for hiring the staff, in determining who gets to join the team. But many times we find that there's an integration disconnect once we have gotten the star of the applicants and we have decided this is the person who we get to bring in to join the team to serve such and such a role. Once we have gotten these people into the organization, we must not take it for granted that they can, get on their feet running. It's what we would want, really. Any hiring manager would be looking forward to such a situation, but it doesn't work out that neatly. There has to be an enablement, and therefore the hiring, the procurement committees or the hiring parties must then sit down and ask themselves how they can enable the new staff or the new personnel that they have brought on board to succeed in their role and to be a contributor, so that then they can transition from being the successful candidate to a contributor within the team. So the question here is then we have to think whether we have invested as much thought in helping people succeed in the workplace, because sometimes we might think that we hired the wrong person, but sometimes it's usually just a gap of integration, so that this person is within this big company or within this business, but they really can't quite tell where they fit or where they fit into the big picture. Now, orientation is not onboarding. Let's first agree on that. See, orientation is something that can happen in a day, because when we talk about orientation, we are talking about things like signing the HR forms, getting the document, submitting the documentation that is required by the company or the business for you to be their personnel. You acquaint the new staff with maybe the equipment, give them an office tour, maybe share the policies, the governance policies with them for review, so that they are familiar with how things are done. Now, when you think about that, that's something that can be done within a day. You could, have someone take the new staff through such steps. But when we talk about onboarding, this needs a considerable amount of time. We're talking about a few weeks to a few months, because when we talk about onboarding, we are looking at things like helping this staff or this new personnel understand the organizational purpose. Why does this company exist? What is it about? What is this business about? Number two, when we talk about onboarding, we are also talking about having this staff create and develop relationships within the team, and I'll be talking a bit more on that later. Taking them through how decisions are made within the company, clarifying the expectations, and then having them reach the place of being productive and being able to contribute meaningfully to the team. So what does every new employee need? We're going to look at 5 things that every new employee would be looking forward to in a new environment. Number 1 is role clarity. And one of the best ways to think about this is imagining that you are the new staff. Imagining that you have joined this big company or this business and it's your first day. You maybe are a HR person, you know HR, but how do you begin in this new environment? When you put yourself in their shoes, then it becomes a bit easy to think about how to support and to enable the new staff. But again, back to what every new employee needs, I'm going to take you through 5 points. And the first one, like I said, is role clarity. They need to understand what they are expected to achieve, and this could be staggered in terms of maybe like within 30 days. What's the expectation within the first 30 days? So thinking about the first month, maybe another target or a few other targets for, then what about in 60 days, in 2 months, and in 3 months, so that there's an incremental target, there are incremental targets, and so that there is a charted path for growth for this staff, so that then they are clear what they are focusing on within the first maybe few weeks, the consequent weeks, and on and on. Again, under defining their role and giving them clarity on the expectation, we must also clarify how success will be assessed, so that this is the expectation that after 30 days you should be able to do these reports to this level of completion. So how will this be measured? How do we measure success in this and this metric? So that must be again defined for the new staff, so that they are not shooting without a focus. They are clear on the expectation and they know how that the success of that expectation is actually measured. Number 2, we have relationship clarity, and this is where the staff gets into the team, gets blended in with the team. So when we're talking about relationship clarity, certainly this will take a bit more than a day, but eventually the new staff must be able to tell who they depend on, who are they supposed to depend on in their role, and who depends on them. And they must also be able to know if they needed help, who can they ask for help. So understanding team dynamics enough to know, if I needed help, this is where I go, this is the person I would ask for this kind of help. Maybe this other kind of help would be somebody else. And also understanding that my role, this is where my role is, and probably this and this person, and that could be a senior person, is depending on me to, I'm thinking, for example, if you're working in research, so the person depending on you would be maybe somebody who needs real-time data on maybe market analytics and things like that. And also knowing who depends, who you also depend on, who do you depend on for support within the work context. Then we have the organizational context. Every new staff must be able to understand why an organization exists, and this is what we call the mission of the organization. Why is this organization in place, or why is this business in place? And when they can clearly tell that, it is usually a big step forward, because sometimes you could be running around and you are nowhere in alignment with the focus of the organization. And these things matter. The focus of a company or an organization does inform how your role plays out. So accounts ain't just accounts. We have to think about, in this context, what does that mean? HR is not just HR. In every context, we have to answer the question of what does this mean in this particular organizational context. Once the staff is clear about what this company does, what it is about, then help them understand how their role fits into the big picture, or how their work fits in to the big picture of the organization. Everybody wants to feel like they are part of something bigger than them, or like they are adding value in the space where they are in. And certainly, if you hire the staff, they are adding value, and it's important that you map that out for them as you do the onboarding, so that they are clear that this is how, whatever I'm doing here in this particular space, maybe it's even a branch, whatever it is I'm doing is feeding into the organizational mission in this and this sense, and this is the gap I'm filling, and this is the how instrumental I am in the furtherance of the organization's mission. Then we have culture. It's important for new staff to understand culture, and culture is a big conversation in organizations today, because clearly it's different. It's very different in different organizations. So bringing them to a place of understanding, how are decisions made here? What's the chain of command? Like, how do I get things approved? Who makes the decisions? Such kind of information is helpful for a new person joining the team. How is conflict handled? Or maybe disagreements? How does that play out? And some of these, it may not be like in a PowerPoint slide or like a PowerPoint presentation. It's really just taking the staff through, the nuances of day to day, because that's what culture is. It's how people live and how they do things. So just explaining to them, this is how this goes, this is how this is handled, and on and on. The behaviors that are valued in this work context. What is rewarded? What is frowned upon? What is so important? Maybe it's accountability. Not to say that everything else is not important, but accountability is really up there for us. Maybe it's professionalism, and maybe it's some of the things that are probably not as overt as we think. You see, for example, things like dress code. These days, at least in my experience, not many organizations have that portion in the induction process or in the orientation process. Many times it's taken for granted now that you should know you're in a professional workspace. But I've seen work context where you are expected, if you're a man, to be in a suit and a tie every single day. Now you see, if you're coming from a place where you do casual Fridays and you do cultural days, that may not be an obvious point for you. So again, making sure that the staff is up to speed with the culture of the organization. Now lastly, point number 5, we must introduce early success. And let me explain what I mean. I mean, give achievable targets to new staff in their role and in their context. As you structure their work, perhaps in the 30 days, 60 day, 90 day structure, give them what we call quick wins or easy wins. And the reason for this is confidence grows with results, and confidence also grows with the feeling of contribution, the feeling that I am actually already contributing to the team. Nurtures confidence for new staff to pick up their role and run with their work. So you want to consider that as you structure the induction for a new staff within your company. Now, what is the manager's role in induction? You see, induction is not the HR's responsibility. I mean, the HR can coordinate the process and structure the process, but they cannot own the full induction process. So managers have to pull their weight, and managers have to own the integration of new staff within the organization. And what are the things that managers can do within the induction process? One of them is set expectations, because they are the managers, they are the leaders. They need to set expectation for the staff. They also need to meet with them regularly to get feedback and to give feedback, so that they are clear on how this is going. Is the staff getting on okay? Is there areas of support they need? So regular meetings help, instead of waiting for the probation period, maybe after 3 months, and then that's at that point you start raising issues. So managers have to be in the loop of the conversation and very engaged, at least within the initial period of the staff settling in. Like I said, giving feedback is quite important, and again, as you can tell, that is the manager's role, to be able to give feedback, probably on big pieces of work, and feedback that's constructive, feedback that moves the staff forward. Again, the managers need to introduce the new staff to key stakeholders, because that can only be done. I'm imagining things like if the new hire, for example, is a director, you're getting a director in fundraising, then you need to introduce this person probably to the board and to the people that are responsible for this work. So again, managers have to be in the loop and very involved. Now, how do you know that your onboarding process worked well? These are a few questions you could ask yourself. And number 1, is the new staff contributing to the team and to the ongoing work? Do they know their niche, and are they contributing? Number 2, do they understand priorities? Do they know what to prioritize, what to deprioritize? Because that tells you whether they are clear on the focus of the organization, and they're in the loop on what's going on. So if they really get it, then they would know what to prioritize. Then, have they built relationships within the team? That's an important indicator to tell whether the onboarding process has gone well. Do they know where to find information? Now, if they needed information about maybe finance or budgets, or do they know where they are able to find that information? And lastly, are they becoming confident in their role? Are they owning their processes? Are they running with their work and taking responsibility and accountability? Are they comfortable in their role within the organization? These are good indicators to tell you how well your onboarding process has been going, or is going, or has gone, if you are already concluding or have concluded the process. As I close, I'll say this, that a successful hire is not indicated by getting the best candidate from the applicants join your team. It is where the contracted party becomes productive and engaged within the work and the mission of the organization. So recruitment will bring people into your organization, but effective onboarding is what makes these people become a part of your organization. If this resonates with you, if you found it useful, feel free to share with your networks and even to like or leave a comment. My name is Julia Irongo, and this is brought to you by J-Pen Company Limited, a management consulting practice in Nairobi, Kenya. Bye.